#1.
Miss any part of the show? Every moment of every show is available in podcast form by searching Hans and Scotty on your favorite podcasting platform or online at KSLSports.com. This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
You can win big every Wednesday on the KSL Sports Zone with Win Ticket Wednesday. This coming Wednesday, tomorrow, you're going to be winning tickets to Cody Johnson in the Leather Deluxe Tour, June 28th at the Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater. Get tickets now at livenation.com or listen to KSL Sports Zone all day Wednesday for your chance to win those tickets to Cody Johnson.
By the way, you might want to listen because I heard they're pretty close to being sold out.
The Cody Johnson concert is close to being sold out?
It's a hot item. So you're going to want to listen because this might be one of the last places you have a chance to get those tickets, to get your hands on those tickets.
Just listen tomorrow. We're going to be giving them away all day. And that concert goes down June 28th. I guess if there are some tickets left, you can find them at livenation.com. But I know he's quite the country star, Cody Johnson. So excited for that. Coming up tomorrow. All right, excited for this conversation because Ryan Odom has done such an amazing job with VCU, put together a great year, and now they face off against the BYU Cougars in a 6-11 matchup in the Eastern bracket in Denver, Colorado, coming up Thursday at 2 o'clock. And I couldn't be more excited about this matchup. Ryan Odom is a good friend of Scotty G's. And he joined us yesterday, and we just start things off by talking about the amazing season he's put together with VCU.
It's been a lot of fun. It really has. The second year here, we were able to keep a good amount of our guys from our first year. And I think, in college basketball right now, retention is so important. You retain the right players. You try to sign as many really quality high school guys as you can, and certainly go into the portal and figure out who fits with what you have returning. And if you're able to do that, you have a real chance. And, for us in year one, we had a lot of stuff going on that season with injuries and things and guys that were unavailable. And then we finally got healthy towards the end and had a pretty good team, down the stretch, and we made it all the way to the championship and, didn't play particularly well in that championship game. And, we had the confetti dropped on us and we weren't the winner. And so we had to go back in that locker room and kind of, sit with that for a little bit. And, the guys that returned this year, were motivated by that moment. And, we're determined to be a really consistent team this year. And, first goal certainly was to win the regular season. We were able to do that. Second goal, happened this weekend. We wanted to win the conference tournament and secure the bid. And, for those guys to be able to experience that joy and work really hard for it, it certainly was really gratifying for our staff and just fun to be a part of it.
Well, Coach, let's talk about one of the guys that's really made this thing go, and a guy that we're familiar with here who was with you at Utah State, Max Shulga, who followed you to VCU. Talk about his performance over the last couple of years, but more specifically this year for you and what he's meant to the team.
Yeah, he's meant so much. We wouldn't be where we're at, if he wasn't still here and playing the way that he played, over the last two seasons. He was first team all-conference last year. He was player of the year this year. And, when you go into games and you have the best player on the court most nights, that's a real positive thing. And, I'm just so proud of Max, just in his overall development, from when we first got there at Utah State. He was a young kid and just gotten in the States and was a part of a winning program there with Coach Smith in that group. And I still remember the first conversation with him on the phone. He was like, "Hey, Coach, I'm going in the portal." And then a couple of days later, I convinced him to stay. And I'd actually talked to, some of the guys on Craig Smith's staff, and they had told me there's something about this kid. And so long story short, just began to recruit him to come back. And he didn't play much his first year, and to watch how he handled that. And there were days where he didn't handle it great. And then there were days where it was like, okay, the light's starting to go on. And, we were injured that first year and end of the season, I think he had to start a game. Maybe it was against San Jose. I'm not sure who it was against, but he played really well. And then earned some more minutes, down the stretch of that season. And then it was clear, over the course of that summer that he was going to be the starter next year. And, then it's been on from there. And for him to be the best player on a college team now, a high-level college team, to graduate, to actually really focus, on the academics and to watch him mature. He's literally a part of our family. He's at our house all the time. He's close with my boys and my wife. And I'm just really, really proud of the man he's become, and excited to get to finish it out with him.
A lot of people that have lost track of you at VCU remember your last year at Utah State when you had Max and Taylor and Ashworth in that crew, and it was such an elite offense. I think you were 16th in the country offensively. And now, just looking at the stats, you guys are just tremendous. I mean, still good offensively, but defensively, you have had a remarkable year this year. What, number one in the country in defensive effective field goal percentage? What is it about this crew defensively that really makes you go?
Yeah, I mean, it's just the sustained pressure. We try to disrupt with discipline, and, some games we're better at it than others. We're not really trying to force turnovers. That's not necessarily the goal. It's just to disrupt and try to do it in a way where we're not giving up easy baskets. We have rim protection. Luke Bemboye and Christian Furman both do a really good job of protecting the rim. And we do our best. We're not a tremendous defensive rebounding team. It's an area that, wasn't great over the course of this past weekend, and we've got to get better at that. But guarding the 2 and guarding the 3 is certainly a strength of ours. And, it's something that we're desperately going to need, in the tournament and against a real stellar BYU team.
Yeah, let's get into that a little bit. Some of your early looks at BYU, Coach. What are you expecting from them?
Yeah, I mean, they're a big-time team. I mean, they're really well coached. I mean, obviously playing in that conference that they play in, we're not seeing that caliber every single night. And, that's not a knock on our conference. It just is what it is. The bodies, night in and night out are really tough to deal with, and different styles. You're facing a ranked team most nights, and, they've performed at a really, really high level. Obviously their offense, is fun to watch. I'm sure it's fun to play in. They certainly pass the ball really well and look for one another. You can tell they're a true team. And then defensively, they're probably a little bit opposite of us, right? And that, when you first look at us, you look at the defensive numbers and you're like, wow, that's pretty impressive. But the offense is pretty good too. Like, we were first in offense in our conference as well. And so they're very similar, to that. Their defense is good. And that's why they've won so many games. When you have that, Scotty G can remember me talking about it a lot. You always want to be the most balanced team that you can possibly be. And, BYU has certainly proven to do that, this year.
Boy, you just you can't shake the state loose. You had Utah in the NIT last year. You got BYU in the NCAA this year. It's just the state's got a hold of you.
What about this committee? They keep doing this, huh?
Yeah. When you look at getting back into the NCAA tournament and what it means for you and this staff and these guys to be able to share that experience with not just your team but the community there at VCU, just how important are those moments in the building up? And it's not like VCU didn't have already an awesome culture. They've been to Final Fours and they've had a great culture there. But to be able to deliver a trip to the NCAA tournament, what does that mean to that school?
Oh, it's huge. I mean, it's expected, quite honestly, no different than at Utah State, and, when you take a job like this, you understand, what the expectations are. And certainly as coaches, that's what you want. You want to be at a school where people care. And, going into this season, it hasn't happened. Haven't been consecutive misses in the NCAA tournament since 2004. And so certainly this team did not want to be the team that was the first to do that. And we were motivated for a lot of different reasons. But this particular team was motivated to put its own stamp on the program. And, right now at 28 wins, the most ever is 29. And so we're really excited, about, the opportunity in front of us in the tournament. And we're very fortunate to be there and fortunate to be sharing the court with another great team. And I know both teams are going to prepare really, really well and be ready to go, on Thursday.
Coach, it's pretty incredible that you hold one of the most historic wins in NCAA tournament history, and I kind of want to revisit a little bit for our listeners. Going back to 2018, UMBC versus Virginia, it was a 1-16 matchup. Virginia was a 20.5-point favorite going into that game. You guys go into half, you're all squared up at 21, and I want you to take us through the second half. What happened for your team to come out and end up with a 20-point win in what would be one of only two, I believe, 1-16 victories in the history of the tournament?
Yeah, I think what's unique about that team, we were known for our offense, as well. But down the stretch of that season, the defense was really, really good. And, we pressured the basketball pretty much full court, not necessarily as much as we're doing it here at VCU, but it's probably the closest comp, in my different tenures at different places. And we were able to just put pressure on the basketball and not allow it to go into the paint. And offensively, we were able to get out and run. And, Virginia's obviously, very, very difficult to score on any time. But one of the best times to be able to have a chance to score on them is in transition. And our guys were feeling pretty good at 21-21 when I first walked in the locker room. They felt like they could play, with this team. And, that's half the battle, is just mentally, feeling like you can do it. And coming out of halftime, we were fortunate. We got a couple open looks and knocked them down. And then it kind of just went from there. And, you know how it is. It's the tournament, brings a lot of different things. They had just won, the ACC championship, and unfortunately for them, they were without, what was probably one of their most important players, if not their best player, in DeAndre Hunter. So that was a factor, no doubt in the game. Not having him was a big deal, and so we were certainly fortunate in that regard as well. But obviously still really proud of that group and still connected with them and in a big way.
VCU travels well. You got a great fan base out there, but you are coming west of the Mississippi, the game in Denver, so you have altitude. You'll have, I'm sure, a crazy amount of BYU fans. Do you treat this obviously it's a business trip and you want the families to enjoy it, the players to enjoy it, but also it's a business trip, and do you almost treat it like a little bit of a road game?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about that. I mean, maybe. I hadn't really thought about it from that perspective, but, I think the biggest thing is, it's a mini tournament. That's the way we're going to approach it. You've got 4 teams in this little mini tournament, and you want to try to come out of it. No different than you do in your conference tournament, but those that have multiple rounds. And so we were able to do it this weekend in advance, and you're prepping for the next opponent. And, right now, for us, our primary focus is obviously BYU, and doing our best there, but you also have to be ready, for that next game. You've only got a 1-day prep, for that next opportunity. And so, it's going to be challenging. We know that, playing out west and the travel. We just finished yesterday, in a really physical and tight and stressful game. And so we've given our guys the day today, and, we've watched a little bit of film and stuff like that to be able to kind of, get it on their brains, but, we've got to make sure that their bodies are ready. And this is a veteran group. They're used to one-day preps and things like that and our routines. But, I want our team to go in there, with a mindset of trying to win, and advance.
There you go, Ryan Odom, head coach of VCU. BYU getting ready to take on VCU coming up Thursday at 2 o'clock on TNT. We're excited for that one. It's actually going to tip during the show, so we'll have some great updates, and we're going to have some fun. And don't forget, tomorrow, the great Ken Pomeroy, along with Coach Tim Lacombe, we're all going to be sitting down a nice little round table, and we're going to be helping you get ready for your bracket. So you're going to want to make sure you join us. That's coming up tomorrow at 1 o'clock with Ken Pomeroy, Tim Lacombe, myself. We're just going to be going over all the brackets, all the numbers, and we're going to help you dial in your bracket. If you haven't filled in your bracket at KSLSports.com, you're missing out because we got $1,000 on the line for the best bracket. And we also have $500 on the line for anybody that beats JJ and JJ's bracket. We're going to put you into a pool and pick a winner for $500. And all you got to do is enter to win at KSLSports.com. Big thanks to Ryan Odom. Fantastic coach, and, man, he's got VCU playing well. And this is going to be a fun matchup. I can't wait. I can't remember anticipating a college basketball game like I'm anticipating this one in a long time. BYU playing some great basketball. VCU, the A-10 champs, and BYU with the opportunity to avenge their loss against the A-10 champs last year in the first round of the NCAA tournament in Duquesne. So a lot on the line. BYU potentially moving on to see either Wisconsin or Montana, more likely Wisconsin, as a 3 seed, and then potentially Alabama as a 2 seed in that Eastern bracket. Steve Bartle coming up next.
Covering the Utes better than anyone else. This is Ute Insider Steve Bartle of KSLSports.com on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Man, Steve, you were on top of this thing from the jump. Alex Jensen, the new hire at the University of Utah, and you were out there at the presser. Now, this is an incredible hire, brother. How were they handling this thing at the presser?
It was a pretty sweet setup they had for the press conference. Obviously, leaning into his return to the university and kind of the home sweet home kind of vibes. It was pretty cool. So they had shirts available for fans that attended the press conference, and you could tell that this just means a lot to obviously fans, but more importantly the people that are going to be around him on a day-to-day basis. And it was a pretty significant move to make. Obviously, when you decide to fire a coach, when they did with, few games remaining left in the season, you open yourself up to a lot of criticism, and a lot of it is valid and warranted. But to bring home somebody like Alex Jensen, who, the majority of this fan base remembers quite fondly in terms of the glory days under Rick Majerus and the success that they had during his time up on the Hill, and watching him develop over the years as a coach in the NBA. This is the sort of move that Utah had to make in order to validate their decision to move on from Craig Smith. So they got it done, and we'll continue to see the fruits of this decision bear out over the course of time. But Alex Jensen is absolutely the right guy. There's obviously there's a lot of nostalgia around the hire, but the more you talk to people about Alex Jensen, the coach, the more excited fans should get, because he's, everybody that talks about him raves about, his ability as a coach. And I think he's the right guy to lead Utah into the future.
How important is this hire for Mark Harlan in a couple of different lights? Number one, for it to be successful. And number two, just this hire, bringing in a name like Alex Jensen, being able to get the deal done and being able to kind of reclaim and build on, as you mentioned, something that was really difficult to go through with Craig Smith.
Yeah, I think you kind of used a good word there, reclaim, some of the reclaim some positivity around the program. I think with what's gone on over the last couple of years with the football program and the basketball program not having a lot of success, the fan base has grown frustrated and exhausted, even would be a word that I would use. It's just been one thing after another. So for Mark Harlan to have made the decision to move on from Craig, like I said, this was the move that they had to make. It had to be something of this nature, bringing in somebody like Alex Jensen, somebody with a great, resume, but to have that connection with the fan base again, to reinstill that connection with the fans, I think was important. And so now, this is only getting to the starting line for Utah. And as I've talked to people, that's the mindset, is this is only the beginning of the work that has to go into rebuilding Utah basketball into what it was, 20, 25 years ago under Rick Majerus. That's kind of the feeling that I've gotten, is that, this is a huge step for Utah basketball in hopefully turning things around with the program. But this is only the first step. And from here, it's got to continue to parlay into, increased fan, attendance and success on the floor and just carrying this momentum and riding this wave of momentum forward into the future. Obviously, with there's a lot going on, with the university itself in terms of plans for the future with campus and the new arena. And this, again, bringing Jensen back home is key to kind of kickstarting all of this, into the future with the Huntsman Center, the relocation, and building a new arena. This was the first step to all that. And so this was a must win for Harlan. This was something he had to do, and to go about it in the manner that he did. I thought he executed this pretty flawlessly, with hindsight being 2020 and knowing how this all played out. I think he handled this quite well.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with it. And I think that Mark Harlan's taken some heat. He's probably felt the heat, but he knows that this is an extinguisher, a lot of that heat. So first things first for Alex Jensen is to secure his roster. And I was sad to see Jake Wallin enter into the transfer portal. I was reading this morning that Jake is one of the top 5 prospects currently in the portal, but I also know that there's some active conversation going on with Jake and the University of Utah. Any chance he returns with what they're putting together with NIL?
Yeah, I do think there's not just a chance, but a fairly decent chance that, a guy like Jake Wallin does end up back at Utah. But as you said, he's currently one of the top guys in the transfer portal, and there's going to be a lot of interest in him. There's going to be even demand for him, particularly within the state. I think that, both BYU and Utah State are interested in potentially adding Jake Wallin to each of their rosters, and so there's going to be competition. But for Utah, I know that Alex Jensen has made it clear that he would like to have Jake Wallin back, that there have been conversations between those two about him being a key part of Jensen's roster and building the foundation of Utah basketball. So, there's going to be more, and we saw Hunter Erickson enter his name into the portal as well. And, I would anticipate that there will be more to come, more transfer portal entries to come for Utah. And I think part of that too is, for a lot of players, with the expected influx of resources and support that Jensen is believed to be receiving, that increase in NIL means that these players probably need to have a pretty firm idea of what their value truly is in the transfer portal market. And so, that's part of all of this as well, is the players, want to know how much they're viewed by others, and to potentially negotiate with Utah to secure their value and their worth. And I think that's the right move. And I think, Jake Wallin in particular, the way that he went about his announcement and the wording, I think he's going about that quite respectfully to Utah, and still maintaining that he's going to participate in postseason play. They're going to play in this new postseason tournament created by Fox and the Crown Basketball Tournament. And I think we'll see a handful of others continue to do that as well. But yeah, for Alex Jensen, communication with the guys on the roster is going to be key over the next few days. And he's had, he's had a few opportunities to meet with them, to talk with them over, Zoom calls as well. And I think he's going to continue to have more and more conversations with these players to hopefully keep them intact at Utah.
Where are things at right now with Alex Jensen and his staff, in particular, Andre Miller?
Yeah, that was, I think, a key that we wanted to hear from Alex. I've heard some things that, Jensen has the desire to bring some NBA influence to his staff, to add pieces to his staff that come from NBA backgrounds. But at the same time, I thought it was interesting to hear him talk about recruiting and his lack of, I guess, understanding of where recruiting is at the college level right now, in the college landscape. And I think that was that sort of honesty was refreshing to hear. And I think he understands that, he's going to need staff members that have those relationships, that are known as recruiters. And so there's going to be a mixture, and, based on what I've heard of, guys that come with him, with NBA pedigree, but then also, that there's going to be a need for guys that have recruiting backgrounds as well. So, all in all, I think Jensen is going to take his time. He's not going to rush into anything. And for Utah fans, I think everybody is kind of waiting on, what's next. And I think what is next for Utah basketball in terms of the staff, all eyes are on Andre Miller and what's going to happen there. And, Andre is currently the head coach of the Grand Rapids Gold, I think is their name in the G League. And, they've, just like Jensen, who's going to finish out the season with the Dallas Mavericks, Miller is also going to finish out, his time with that G League team. And so, but I anticipate Andre Miller being a part of the staff based on everything that I've heard. Now, it's not done. It's, things aren't finished. I'm not reporting that it's done or anything like that, but based on everything that I've gathered, I would be floored if Andre is not part of Alex's staff.
Talking with Steve Bartle, Utah Insider, does a fantastic job at KSLSports.com. He's got a write-up that just posted at KSLSports.com, kind of a preview of Utah's spring ball that's going to be kicking off. And just one or two questions for you in regards to Utah spring ball. Mm-hmm. It's really crazy for me to crack open the roster and look at the running back room and not see Mekhi Bernard and not see two or three names that I'm familiar with. Right. Tell Utah fans that are so used to having a all-conference running back and even a top 25 national leader at times, tell them what to expect in this running back room coming into spring ball.
Yeah, this is a totally new room from what Utah's had over the last few years. There's always been somebody from the previous roster for, gosh, who knows how long. But this is a completely new room for Utah. And key to all of that is Wayshawn Parker, who transferred to Utah from Washington State. He was regarded as a top 2 or 3 running back transfer portal prospect, during the winter cycle. He obviously followed Mark Atuwaya from Washington State to Utah, and that was key to Parker's decision in coming to Utah. Obviously, that familiarity and relationship there. As a true freshman last year at Washington State, he ran for about 750 yards and 4 touchdowns. And I think he's primed for, a bigger workload and perhaps even greater success running behind this Utah offensive line, which is, obviously it struggled the last 2 seasons with the quarterback play and the amount of pressure and the loaded boxes that they've had to go up against. But I think this offensive line is a significant upgrade for him in terms of what he's running behind compared to Washington State. So be excited about Wayshawn Parker, but I think there should be a lot of optimism around Naquari Rogers, who comes to Utah from New Mexico, obviously following Devin Dampier and Jason Beck. And the more I watch him, the more I appreciate his game. He's not a physical bruiser like a Zach Moss or a Tavion Thomas, but he runs tough, and he's going to slip out of tackles. He's going to fight through tackles. I think he's a great complement to Wayshawn Parker. And then they've got a couple other in Devin Green and Daniel Bray. Daniel Bray is a dynamic athlete, track athlete type of player. And so, we'll get a better feel for what that running back room is going to be. But I'm really excited about that group in this offense behind that offensive line. I think it's really a match made in heaven for that running back room.
Well, Steve, we're going to have to get you on again soon because we got to get into the quarterback room. And you know what?
Yeah.
Really quick, can you just give me what the relationship is with Isaac Wilson as he entered the portal and ended up kind of rotating back into Utah's program? The relationship there, and is he kind of listed as the current number 2, or is that Nate Johnson? Like, what is the hierarchy behind Devin Dampier?
Yeah, Isaac Wilson. Obviously, this past season it was a difficult one for Isaac and all that. And I think Utah kind of understood where Isaac was coming from in his decision to enter the transfer portal. It was made clear to me that when he entered the portal that he had an open door to return. So they had a good understanding, and I think his return within this offense, I think, is significant, and he should be viewed as the number 2 right now. I know that there's also the possibility that he could redshirt this year to preserve a year and gain the year back that he lost this past season, which was supposed to be his redshirt season. So we'll see what happens with Isaac. But I think, there's room for potential with Isaac in this offense in terms of, he's not the same athlete as Devin Dampier, but he can certainly throw the ball pretty effectively within this offense. And I'm excited to see how that marries together with Isaac and this offense to see, what he truly looks like. But in terms of the relationship, with Isaac and the football program, I think things are good. And I think they had a good understanding of, why he elected to enter the portal and ultimately come back.
Steve, thanks so much for all you do, brother. Appreciate you taking some time with us today.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on, Hans.
Yep, talk to you again soon. Steve Bartle, Utah Insider. You can find his full write-up of Utah spring ball as it gets ready to kick off at KSLSports.com. We'll take a quick one. We'll come right back for a little bit of whole world news. That's next.